Hi, in this video, we're going to be replacing a triple valve diverter with a single handle Symmons shower valve, which would be tub and shower. And we're going to use a Symmons repair plate. So, first thing we did was shut the water main off and depressurize the system and drain it. And then we took the stems out. So, you would never take the stems out without first shutting the water off. Then what we did is grab this template and marked out the wall with magic marker, and grab the roto zip with a special tile bit and just etched around it. So this wall is of inferior material. It's just basically green board sheetrock. It's not wonder board. It's real porous, but the object here is to replace the shower valve, not do an entire bathroom remodel, because that would be cost prohibitive. So once this is out, we're going to cut the shower valve out with the copper lines. We're going to cut out the hot, the cold, the tub, and the shower, and solder it all in. And with the very small torch tip, we using acetylene, we'll be able to solder just in this tiny space given with this cutout. That's all you need, and there's a high success rate with this replacement, and they generally are replaced without incident, without having a major catastrophe with opening up walls. And the whole thing is to keep the cost down to a minimum and just replace the shower valve. So here we have the tile and the sheetrock removed, and we exposed the shower valve. So now we're going to cut the hot, the cold, the tub, and the shower right out and fit up the new shower valve. So here we have our 1/2-inch cutter, and I'm gonna turn it to cut it. These cutters are nice, they're nice and compact. You can get them in tight places. I'm holding the camera with the other hand. And the important part is when you get near the end to make sure you don't drop the cutter down the wall, which is very easy to do, especially when you're doing it with one hand. So the tub spout connection is disconnected, cut. The hot is cut, and the cold is cut as well. And what I'm going to do now for the shower head is I'm just going to desolder this instead of cutting it, because what I want to do is melt this out with the torch and pull this valve right off, because this one connection is the only thing holding the shower valve together. And the reason I'm doing that is because when I put the new shower valve in, just my own way of doing this is I always put this connection in first on the new shower valve and solder it in, and that sort of acts as a base to build on everything else. And the only trick is you have to make sure it's centered left to right and up and down in the hole we created. Otherwise the fascia won't cover the hole you made. So that's very critical, that you be centered left to right and up and down. And then we may have to trim this a little, and then once that base is established, we'll then connect the tub drain, hot and cold. Also on the new shower valve, because I'm using a Symmons, the top connection on the new shower valve. So we've cut the hot and cold in the tub spout here. and we're ready to remove the rest of the shower valve. So for this connection here, we're going to actually desolder it and melt out this old solder and wipe it down, wipe the old solder off while it's hot, and pull the old shower valve out. Then the reason I do that is to put the new to connect the new shower valve on this pipe here and solder it on, and that acts as a base to build the rest of the shower valve on. That's just my own personal way of doing it. And what's really key is that when you do that, we may have to cut this pipe or add to it depending on how the shower valve lays out. We want to be perfectly centered left to right and up and down, and that's a key critical part when replacing these. So also the connection on the top of the new shower valve is the same as the old one, soldered connection, and the bottom is the same too. It's a threaded connection. So we'll solder the top, put a copper adapter, and eventually solder the bottom piece as well, but initially it's a threaded connection. So the old shower valve was melted off. Here it is right here. And it just comes right off, and then while the solder is molten, we wipe it. I couldn't do it with and hold the camera at the same time. So one of the things you may have noticed is the old pipes here have solder on them. Big globs of solder. And this one as well. Depending on where we have to cut the new shower valve, we can't cut if there's a ball valve here. So ball valve. If there's a ball of solder here, we can't cut because the cutter won't roll over that ball of solder. So what we would first have to do is wipe that off by heating it up, and melting the solder, and then just wiping it off. It'll wipe right off, and then once it's wiped off and cooled enough to handle, we can then cut the pipe. Okay, so what I've done is I've cleaned both the old pipe and the new shower valve and flexed them together and put them where they're going, and everything seems to line up. This cover plate right here is important, and if you look closely, it says the finished wall must be flushed with this surface. And that's incredibly important when you install a shower valve. Now right now it's not, but there's enough play in this so that when I'm done, it will be. And I'm going to be mindful of that during the entire installation. And now all I have to do is solder that joint right in the back there. And once I do that, that's going to be the base that holds everything together for alignment. So one other alignment issue, in addition to left, right, up, and down, is the depth. And that's really critical to have the proper depth. And that's why they give you this gauge. And it's also a plaster guard. So, when they come and install the tile, it doesn't get plaster and water all over the spline of the spindle. So we soldered in the shower valve, and we're going to test now. So I'm going to throw the stem back in, tighten it up, put the water on. Before we close this, we want to make sure everything's tight, and that includes the tub and the shower valve. Shower head rather. So we want to make sure all our connections are tight before we close anything, because we don't want any leaks in the wall after we're done. So we're all tested and no leaks, everything's fine. Right now we're replacing the tub spout because with the new dimension, the old one was pushed out a little bit, but a new one came with the shower valve anyway, so it was going to be replaced. So what I had to do is melt off the old copper by mail adapter, then cut it, because the cutter actually ended up being where the old mail adapter was soldered. So I had to cut it there. So I had to remove that. There's another way to do it. You could have cut it over here and put a coupling on it, but it's just easier to melt it off and wipe it down and then cut it again. So this will fit right here. We're going to tape and dope this up, and we're going to caulk where the tub meets the wall. Now, on this shower valve cover plate, it has a compressible gasket in the back, and when you tighten the screws, it compresses that. But because of these spaces and the grout, I'm concerned that that seal may not be extended into where the grout runs underneath it. So I'm going to caulk this whole thing right here. If it was an entirely smooth surface, you might not even have to grout it, but caulk it, but I'm going to anyway. And here we have the finished product. It's caulked to the wall because some of these spaces between the grout lines I was afraid would suck in water. Even though this has its own seal on it, I added another seal of caulking on it, and I added some caulking on the tub spout. That's a new tub spout and a new shower valve, and it's a finished product. Thank you for watching my videos.